Hello, y'all. So this week we're going to look at array lists. Now, if you remember when we were in principles last year, we did do arrays. Okay. In Java, they have arrays and array lists. There's actually a difference. This year they changed the AP exam to where you don't need to know about arrays, only array lists, which is good because array lists are actually probably more beneficial to what we're learning about. I love arrays. It's a very big part of computer science, especially when it comes to data science and storing large amounts of information and getting that large amount of information whenever you need it, calling it. So let's look at this. Now we're going to go over and review a little bit just to kind of keep spiraling back in what we've learned so far. So let's take a quick refresher about what we learned about classes as far as our Pokemon analogy. Remember, we have our super classes and our subclasses. Our subclasses contain everything that our superclass has, and then you can modify it to meet its own individual needs. You have objects, right? We make objects based on our classes, either our subclass or our superclass, okay? Objects are references. That means they don't exactly or don't necessarily exist in memory. They're just pointing to that place in memory. Okay. And when we make our objects, we base them on our classes and we don't change anything about our classes, but we customize our objects to however we need them. That's object oriented programming. Okay. So we had our super classes, we had our subclasses, we know how to do our objects. We know how to do overriding methods and our super keyword. Remember constructors. Constructors in our Pokemon analogy is kind of like our factory that prints everything on the card. Okay. Constructors give the users the ability to customize how they want their objects created. Um, Array lists. Let's go over array lists. So in our analogy, we want to think of array lists as being, for example, the deck of cards that we hold in our hands. Okay. So we have a deck of cards or a hand of cards that we can pull from. The difference between an array list and an array is you got to think of an array as being a sealed booster pack. Arrays you cannot change at all in Java. Once it's done, it's done. It's not modifiable. Array lists can be changed. So it's like a hand of Pokemon cards in that you have all these objects, right? And that you can change them, you can add to them, you can make your deck bigger, you can make your deck smaller, you can take things out, you can add them. That's what an array list is. It is dynamic. Okay, you have to think of it just like a kind of like a storage container. Okay, let's go over what an array list looks like. All right, so here's a standard array list that is consisted of 7 integers. Okay, array lists are zero indexed in Java. Okay, what that means is that um, for example, let's think of an array as being empty containers, okay? Each of those empty containers has a number associated with it because we want to just call it, right? We want to say, I want dog number 5 or I want dog number 0. Okay, so you have to think of those empty containers as having a number associated with it that we can call that number and get whatever object is in there really, really quick. Think of like when you log into your bank account and you need to see your bank account information, all those account numbers or all those accounts, millions of accounts, for example, Bank of America, are have an index value associated, so it automatically can call from that whole list of information, that whole data science. That's where the whole data science behind comes from. Okay, so let's look at this. So in Java, you have zero-based indexes, which means our containers start at 0. So if we were going to make a array, okay, out of dog objects, and we wanted a to have 7 values or 7 variables in there, that array would start at 0 and go to 6. Now it's still 7. There's still 7 containers, okay, but it starts at 0 and goes to 6. That causes a lot of confusion with people, especially when they start to learn arrays. Okay, so what I want to show you is how we could go over and do a simple array based on dog. Remember, I always like to teach objects, how to write an object, dog, my dog, new dog. Okay, so dog is a simple class to go through. So I created a very simple dog class. Our program has two files. We have our superclass, which is dog, just got one string. It's got one constructor, and I did do a method. This is important because we're going to use it in a little bit. I did a method called speak. It's just basically like the name is calling the name, and it's saying I like to bite. Okay, it's going to be important in a minute for when we go through and start calling methods to our array objects. So this is a very simple dog class. Now let's go over to our main class. Okay, so this is our main class, our second file. Okay, that's just my program. I didn't rename it. Um, Public static void main string args. That's where our main program runs. Okay, and the very first thing we want to do is we want to declare a dog array list variable. All right, this tells the computer that this will hold the dog references to dog objects. So we're going to make an array out of dog objects. Okay, these two brackets let the computer know that we are creating an array. Okay, and pets is what we're going to be naming our variables. So this is the first step in creating our array. We have to declare an array list variable that we're going to be creating, telling the computer we're going to be creating an array list. Okay, so next I have on line 4, this is where you create your array object. All right, so the name of the array list is going to be pets. All right. Remember, dog is our class. All right. Pets is going to be our object. Okay. And now we're telling the computer that we're going to making a new array list that's going to contain 7 dog objects. Okay. So we're declaring our array here. We're telling the computer that we want an array with 7 indexes. Okay, that's going to contain objects of dogs, and we're calling it pets. All right, so what do we do next? Well, we have to create actual dog objects in our array. So what I did is, remember, you're creating based on 0 indexes. So pets, at the 0 index, I'm creating a new dog object, and I'm going to call it unique. Pets in our 1 container. Okay, remember, if we go back to that illustration, you have the different cups. Okay, the cups are the containers. All right, so we have containers 0 through 6, and we're going to be putting each of these dogs, or not dogs, but the students inside those containers. Okay, so I go all the way through 6. I give them names, string names, and I have an object for each of those containers. Now, we've created our array. We've assigned objects to our different containers inside of our array. What can we do with it? All right. So this goes back to our method that we created in our dog class called speak. Let's say I want to call whatever is in index 5 in our array, and I want it to speak. I don't know what's in index 5. I'm just calling it, and I want it to speak. So we have pets. We're calling the object inside of our array. We're going to container 5, and we're calling that action. This is an action method, okay? We're calling speak on pets. So what we would get, well, anyways, this is what the speak method looks like. I forgot to put this here. So we're calling this method on array index 5, which would be Joseph. Okay, so what we should get is Roof, I like to bite Joseph. Call our speak method on the object in index 5 in our array list. And Roof, I like to bite Joseph. I like to bite Joseph. I like to bite Joseph. All right, so there's our simple array that we created. We're using an action method on one of those arrays, and we're calling it from the array list. Okay. Now, let's say, for example, we want to do something a little bit more complex. Let's say, remember, we use for loops, right? For loops is when we know how many iterations we want to go through inside of our code. So let's use a for loop on this, okay? And let's say for our for loop, I want to call every single name on our array and have the speak method applied to it. This is how I would do it. I would write a for loop. It's going to be comprised of integers. Okay. Um, I is our index. Okay. We want our index to start at 0 because Java is 0 based. Okay. And as long as I is less than pets, which is our entire array, that's what we named our array. Okay. As long as I is less than pets.length. Now, Java has a built-in method called .length that runs the whole list, every object inside that array list. Okay, so we want the index to go the entire length of the array and apply speak to each index value. So this is our I++. That means it's going to call it on speak in array 0, and then it's going to iterate +1, and it's going to continue doing until it reaches the end of our list. And you can see here that it goes through each of our people, including Joseph twice. So Joseph got bit twice because remember, we called him individually up here.